David had never thought his life would turn out this way. He used to believe he had everything that mattered: a wife who once loved him, a daughter who was his whole world, and a small but steady job that kept food on the table. He was not rich, but he worked hard. Every late-night shift, every early morning drive, he did it all because he wanted Emily to grow up with security and love. He remembered carrying her in his arms when she was a baby, promising himself he would give her the best life possible. For a while, he kept that promise. He was present at every school play, every doctor's appointment, and every birthday. He was the one who taught Emily how to ride a bicycle, running behind her in the park until she could pedal on her own. She used to laugh and call him her hero. Those were the years when David thought nothing could ever break the bond between them. But things started to change between him and his wife, Karen. At first it was little arguments, about money, about bills, about the stress of life piling up. David lost his job during a company downsizing, and though he searched, it took him months to find stable work again. Those months were heavy. He felt ashamed, less of a man, and Karen made no effort to hide her disappointment. She grew colder, angrier, blaming him for their struggles. By the time David found another job, the damage was already there. Karen's heart had shifted. She began to spend more time outside the house, dressing up more than usual, speaking less to him. The fights became louder, crueler, until one day, she simply said she was done. Divorce papers came soon after, and with them, the battle that broke David's spirit the most: custody over Emily. He fought. He showed up in court with trembling hands, telling the judge how much he loved his daughter, how he wanted to be part of her life. But Karen was clever. She painted him as unstable, a man who couldn't provide, a man who had failed his family. Mark entered the picture not long after. He was everything David wasn't at the time: wealthy, confident, successful. The court leaned toward stability, and Emily stayed mostly with her mom. David was granted visitation, but it was never the same. Sometimes Karen would cancel at the last minute, saying Emily was busy. Sometimes Emily would arrive quiet and withdrawn, almost as if she had been warned not to talk too much about her life with her mother. David tried to make every moment count, taking her out for ice cream, helping her with homework, telling her stories at night when she still agreed to sleep over. But as years passed, those moments grew fewer. Mark, with his polished suits and easy charm, slowly became the man Emily looked up to. He bought her expensive gifts, paid for school trips, and always had the perfect words ready. David couldn't compete. His love was steady but simple: books, walks in the park, secondhand clothes when money was tight. He could see the distance forming in his daughter's eyes, though she never said it out loud. Depression crept in. There were nights David sat alone in his small apartment, staring at the empty chair across from him. He replayed the sound of Emily's laughter in his head, just to keep himself going. Sometimes he would write her letters, long letters full of stories, advice, and reminders of how much he loved her. He mailed them faithfully, but rarely got a reply. He told himself she was busy with school, or maybe shy about writing back. What he didn't know was that some of those letters never reached her at all. Still, he refused to give up. Every birthday, every holiday, he showed up with a small gift, no matter how modest. Every school event he was allowed to attend, he was there, clapping, cheering, making sure Emily could see his face in the crowd. He wanted her to know he was still her father, even if the world seemed determined to push him aside. But each year, the weight grew heavier. Each year, it felt more like he was being erased. Not just from Karen's life, he expected that, but from Emily's too. And the ceremony was over. Students and families filled the courtyard, balloons floating in the air, cameras flashing as parents hugged their children. David pushed through the crowd slowly, his hands shaking, clutching the small wrapped box he had brought for Emily. Inside was a silver bracelet, nothing fancy, but engraved with words that meant everything to him. "Forever, my little girl." He had saved for months just to buy it. He spotted Emily standing with her friends, her graduation cap tilted to one side, her smile bright as she posed for pictures. He stood back for a moment, just watching her. Pride filled his chest, so strong it almost drowned out the pain he had felt earlier when she thanked Mark instead of him. Maybe, he told himself, she was just nervous on stage. Maybe now, in private, she would remember him. He took a deep breath and walked toward her. "Emily," he called softly. She turned, her smile fading when her eyes met his. For a moment, David saw the little girl she used to be, the one who would run into his arms. But now she only crossed her arms over her chest, her expression stiff. "Hi, Dad," she said flatly. The word dad sounded heavy on her tongue, almost forced. David swallowed hard, ignoring the sting in his chest. "Congratulations, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you." His voice cracked, but he pressed on, holding out the small box. "I got you something, just a little gift." She didn't take it. Instead, she glanced around, as if worried someone might see her talking to him. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to," David said quickly. "Emily, I know things haven't been easy, but I've never stopped thinking about you. Not for a single day. Her eyes narrowed, her voice sharper now. Then where were you? David blinked. What do you mean? She shifted her weight, her arms tightening around herself. All those years, you weren't there. You didn't come for me. You didn't try. Mom said you gave up. Mark was the one who showed up. He's the one who's always been there. The words hit David harder than any punch. He stepped back slightly, shaking his head. Emily, no, that's not true. I never abandoned you. I fought for you. I wrote to you, I called, I came every chance I got. Her voice trembled, but her eyes stayed cold. I never saw anything. No letters, no calls. Nothing. Do you know how that feels? To think your own father didn't care. David's chest tightened until it hurt. He reached out a hand, but let it fall when she didn't move closer. Emily, I sent letters. I called so many times. I begged to see you. If you didn't hear from me, it wasn't because I didn't try. You have to believe me. She shook her head, her eyes glossy but hard. I can't do this right now. Please, just don't make a scene. Before David could say another word, she turned and walked away, straight toward Mark, who was waiting by the car with Karen. Emily slipped her arm through Mark's as if it was the most natural thing in the world. David stood frozen in the middle of the crowd, the gift still in his hand, his heart breaking piece by piece. He wanted to run after her, to scream the truth, to tell her everything she didn't know. But his feet wouldn't move. Instead, a darker thought crept into his mind, one that made his stomach twist. If Emily truly believed he had abandoned her, then someone must have told her that. Someone must have made sure she never saw the truth. His eyes lifted to Karen and Mark, who were laughing with Emily as though the world was perfect. David's hands curled into fists. For the first time, he began to wonder if they had stolen more from him than just his marriage. Maybe they had stolen his daughter's heart, too. Do you want me to expand this scene to include David trying to confront Karen and Mark immediately after this moment? Or should we save that confrontation? David drove home after the graduation, but his mind refused to rest. Emily's cold eyes haunted him. Her words echoed over and over. Where were you? You didn't try. He knew the truth. He had tried, harder than she could imagine. But to her, he was nothing more than the man who walked away. The more he thought about it, the more his heart ached. Something had gone terribly wrong, and he could no longer pretend it was just distance or teenage mood swing. That night, sleep never came. David sat at his kitchen table with old photographs spread before him. Emily as a toddler in his arms, grinning with 2 missing teeth. Emily on her 8th birthday, holding the cake he baked because he couldn't afford the one she wanted. Emily on the day she first kicked a soccer ball, running toward him for a hug. He remembered every detail. He had been there. But somehow, the story she carried in her heart was different. His thoughts drifted to Mark. From the beginning, Mark had entered Emily's life smoothly, like water filling cracks. David remembered the first time he saw him with Emily. She was 12, standing at the school gate. David had gone to pick her up for his weekend visit, only to see Mark there first, holding her hand as they crossed the street. Emily's laughter rang out as Mark bought her ice cream from a vendor. David had stood frozen, a sick feeling in his stomach. When he finally walked up, Emily greeted him politely, but her excitement was already spent on Mark. After that, little by little, Mark seemed to take over. He was at her school events, her birthdays, even the doctor visits David used to attend. Every time David arrived, Mark had already been there, already made himself useful, already taken the spotlight. It wasn't just his wealth, it was the way he carried himself, always confident, always knowing the right thing to say. And then there was Karen. She had never forgiven David for his struggles. She twisted every hardship into proof he was a failure. He recalled one afternoon when he came to pick Emily up. He had just lost another job, but he was determined not to let it show. Karen met him at the door, her arms crossed, her voice sharp. She doesn't need a father who can't hold himself together. Mark can provide stability. You only bring disappointment. Emily had stood nearby, silent, her eyes wide. David tried to smile at her, tried to keep the moment light, but the damage was done. Words like those don't just disappear. They plant seeds. Worse still were the letters. David wrote so many. Pages filled with encouragement, with memories, with love. He slipped in jokes only Emily would understand. He always ended them with love, Dad. Forever. He trusted Karen to pass them on, or he sent them to the house by mail. When Emily said at graduation she never saw them, his chest felt like it would burst. That could only mean one thing. Karen had hidden them. Maybe she tore them up. Maybe she threw them away. Either way, she had stolen his voice from his daughter. Guilt weighed on him too. He wondered if maybe Karen was right in some way. He had been weak during those dark years. Depression had swallowed him, and there were days he could barely pull himself out of bed. Maybe Emily had felt that absence. Maybe she thought his silence meant he didn't care. The guilt burned, but the anger burned hotter, because Karen had taken those weak moments and exaggerated them, turning him into a villain. Emily's side was clear now in his mind. She believed what her mother told her. She believed what she saw. Mark always present, David sometimes absent. She believed she was unwanted because that was the story fed to her. The tragedy was that the story wasn't true, but it was the only one she had. Days passed before David could no longer keep his silence. He decided to confront Karen and Mark. He told himself it wasn't about fighting, it was about truth, about standing up for himself as a father. He went to their house one evening unannounced. The large home looked even more intimidating than usual, its lights glowing warmly, a picture of success. David's hands shook as he rang the bell. Karen opened the door, her face tightening at the sight of him. "What are you doing here?" she asked coldly. "I need to talk," David said firmly. "To both of you." Mark soon appeared, his expression calm, almost amused. "David, this isn't a good time." "It's never a good time, is it?" David shot back. His voice trembled with anger. "Emily thinks I abandoned her. She thinks I never tried. And I know that didn't come from her. It came from you." Karen folded her arms. "Don't blame us for your failures. You weren't there, David. You disappeared when she needed you." "That's a lie," David said, his voice rising. "I wrote letters, I showed up. If she didn't get them, it's because you kept them from her." Karen's eyes flashed, but she didn't answer. Mark stepped in smoothly, his tone dripping with calm superiority. "Emily doesn't need to live in the past. She has me now. I've been the father figure she deserves. Maybe you should accept that." David's chest heaved, fury boiling in his veins. "You don't get to erase me. I am her father. You may have money, charm, and your perfect little life, but you stole what wasn't yours. You stole my place in my daughter's heart." Karen laughed bitterly. "Your place? You lost that all on your own." The words cut deep, but David saw it now, clear as day. This wasn't just bad luck, or mistakes, or life drifting apart. They had painted him as the villain, piece by piece, until Emily believed it. His voice broke as he whispered, "You turned her against me." Neither Karen nor Mark denied it. Their silence was louder than any confession. David left the house shaking, his heart shattered, but his mind sharper than before. For the first time, he realized the truth. He hadn't just been erased. He had been rewritten into someone he never was. And now, the only way to save his bond with Emily was to bring the real story to light. Do you want me to let Emily overhear part of this confrontation, planting the seed of doubt now, or keep her discovery for the big twist in the climax section? It happened a week after graduation. Emily had been cleaning her room, sorting through boxes her mother told her to throw out before she moved to college. Most of the boxes were full of old notebooks, childhood toys, and clothes that no longer fit. But at the very bottom of one, hidden under a pile of papers, she found a small shoebox taped shut. Curious, she pulled it out and tore off the tape. Inside were stacks of envelopes, neatly tied together with a rubber band. Her breath caught when she saw the handwriting. It was her father's. With shaking hands, she picked up the first envelope. The paper was worn, but the words were clear. "Dear Emily, I hope school is going well. I miss you more than words can say. Remember, you're always my little girl. Love, Dad." Her eyes blurred with tears. She grabbed another, and another. They were all the same, letters full of love, encouragement, and reminders that he was always thinking of her. Some had small drawings, others little stories about their memories together. He had never stopped writing. He had never stopped trying. Her stomach churned as realization set in. All those years she believed he had abandoned her. All those times she cried, thinking she wasn't wanted. The truth had been right here, hidden from her. Anger surged through her veins. She dug deeper into the box and found printed emails too. Messages he had sent to her mother, begging to speak to her, asking about her school events, pleading to just have one more day with his daughter. None of them had ever reached her. By the time she dropped the papers, her hands were trembling. The lies she had swallowed for years suddenly burned in her throat. She stormed downstairs, clutching a handful of the letters. Karen was in the living room with Mark, sipping wine and laughing at something on the television. "Mom!" Emily's voice shook as she held up the papers. "What is this?" Karen glanced at them, her smile faltering. "Where did you find those?" "In my room. Hidden. Did you hide them from me?" Emily's voice cracked, fury and hurt twisting inside her. Karen stood quickly, her face tightening. "Emily, listen to me." "No!" Emily shouted, her voice loud enough to silence the entire house. "All these years, you told me Dad didn't care. You told me he never tried. But he did. He wrote to me, he begged to see me, and you kept it from me." Mark set his glass down, his calm mask slipping for the first time. "Emily, you need to understand. Don't you dare." Emily cut him off, her chest heaving. She turned on him, her eyes blazing. "You let me call you Dad. You let me believe you were the only one who wanted me, when all along you knew the truth. You both lied to me." Karen reached out as if to touch her daughter's arm, but Emily pulled back violently. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Do you know what that did to me? Do you know how many nights I cried, Thinking my father didn't love me? Thinking I wasn't good enough for him? You broke me." The room filled with heavy silence, broken only by Emily's sobs. Karen's face was pale, her lips trembling. "I only wanted what was best for you. Best for me." Emily's voice was raw, sharp. "You wanted what was best for you. You wanted to erase him so you could pretend this family was whole. You stole my father from me. You stole years I can never get back." Mark tried to step in, his voice low and smooth. "Emily, you have to see it from our side. Your dad was struggling." Her scream cut through his words. "He was still my dad. Struggling or not, he loved me. And you made me hate him. You made me push him away." She dropped the letters onto the floor, the pages scattering across the carpet like broken pieces of truth. She sank onto the couch, her body shaking with sobs, her hands covering her face. Karen knelt nearby, whispering her name, but Emily only cried harder. "Don't touch me. Don't say anything. I can't even look at you." The weight of her words crushed the room into silence. For the first time, Mark had nothing to say. Karen sat frozen, realizing that the lies she spun had finally snapped apart. Emily lifted her head slowly, her face streaked with tears, her voice hoarse but firm. "I pushed away the wrong parent, and I don't know if I can ever forgive you for making me do that." The house felt cold, almost empty, even with all three of them inside. The lies had been dragged into the open, and nothing could cover them again. "Do you want me to let David walk in during this explosive confrontation to make the scene even more raw? Or should we keep him separate and have Emily go to him afterward for the resolution?" Emily showed up at David's apartment the next evening. He wasn't expecting her. He was sitting alone, watching the clock tick, when he heard the knock. For a moment, he froze, thinking it was just another delivery at the wrong door. But when he opened it and saw her standing there, holding a few of his letters in her hands, his breath caught. "Emily," he whispered, his voice breaking. She didn't say anything at first. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her hands trembling. Then, without warning, she stepped forward and hugged him tightly. David stood stiff for a second, shocked, before wrapping his arms around her. His chest shook as he whispered, "I've missed you, sweetheart. More than anything." "I know," she sobbed against him. "I found the letters. I read them all. Dad, I'm so sorry. I thought you left me. I thought you didn't care." He pulled back just enough to look at her face. "None of that was true. I never stopped loving you. Not for one single day." His words were steady, but his tears betrayed how much it meant to finally say them to her. They sat inside, the letters spread on the table between them. Emily touched each one carefully, as though afraid they might vanish. "All those years, I hated you," she said softly. "But it wasn't you. It was them. Mom lied to me. Mark, he let me believe the worst." David shook his head. "Don't waste your heart on hate. What matters now is the truth. You know it. That's enough. But how can you just forgive them?" she asked, anger flashing in her eyes. "After everything they did to us?" David smiled sadly. "Because anger only steals more years. I've already lost enough time with you. I don't want to lose another second." Emily broke down again, leaning against him, and he held her until the tears slowed. The silence that followed wasn't heavy this time. It was healing. In the weeks that followed, their bond began to grow again, slowly but surely. Emily started calling him more often, visiting when she could. They went for walks, cooked simple meals together, and talked about her plans for college. Each moment was small, but to David, each one was a gift. Karen, on the other hand, felt the distance almost immediately. Emily stopped sharing details of her life with her the way she used to. She answered politely but without warmth, her trust broken. The lies had caught up, and Karen could no longer hide behind excuses. She had lost the one thing she wanted to control, her daughter's love. Mark's influence faded even faster. Emily no longer laughed at his easy jokes or sought his approval. She saw through the charm now, saw the way he stood by while Karen poisoned her against her real father. He became just another man in the house, not the dad she once thought he was. David never gloated. He never said, "I told you so." He didn't need to. His strength was in his quiet forgiveness, in the way he simply showed up, proving through actions what words could never erase. He knew healing wouldn't be instant. Trust takes time to rebuild. But each smile from Emily, each phone call, each simple "good night, Dad," was proof that the cracks were slowly being mended. One evening, as they sat on a park bench watching the sunset, Emily leaned her head on his shoulder. "I wasted so many years being angry at you," she whispered. David kissed the top of her head gently. "Then let's not waste any more." The road ahead wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. And for David, that was enough. "Do you want me to end the final section with a quiet, symbolic moment, like Emily calling him Dad in full for the first time in years? Or should we go for a more powerful closing line that lingers with the audience?" The evening was calm, the sun already low, painting the sky in soft shades of orange. David was reading on his old couch when a gentle knock came at the door. He opened it and there was Emily, standing with her hands in her pockets, looking nervous but warm. "Can I come in?" she asked. "Of course," he said quickly, stepping aside. She sat at the small table where so many of his lonely dinners had been eaten. For a moment they said nothing, just shared the quiet. Then Emily looked at him, her eyes glassy but steady. "Dad," she whispered. The word nearly broke him. For years he had waited, hoping to hear it again. Not from memory, not from the past, but from her lips in the present. His chest tightened as tears filled his eyes. He smiled through the ache, his voice trembling. "I never stopped being that." She reached across the table, taking his hand. "I know. I was wrong. I see it now." Neither needed to say more. The silence between them wasn't painful anymore. It was healing. The years of distance, of lies and misunderstandings couldn't be erased, but in that moment they no longer mattered. What mattered was that she was here, and she had chosen to call him by the name that belonged to him. When she left later that night, David stayed at the door long after, staring into the quiet street. His heart was lighter than it had been in years. He realized he hadn't lost his daughter after all. He had only been waiting, for the truth to rise, for the lies to crumble, for her to find her way back. And now she had. Hey besties, thanks so much for watching till the end. If you enjoyed this story about love, lies, and a father's redemption, don't forget to like, share, drop a comment, and of course, subscribe for more powerful stories. Your support means everything and keeps these dramas coming your way. See you in the next one. Another tale that will touch your heart and keep you hooked till the last word. Bye. The following year, on my father's birthday, I didn't join the big family dinner. I couldn't. The thought of sitting at the same table where I had once been humiliated was too heavy. Instead, I chose something quieter, something just for us. I bought a small cake and went to my parents' house early in the morning. My father was sitting on the porch, a blanket around his shoulders, looking out at the garden. When he saw me, his face lit up with a gentle smile. "Happy birthday, Dad," I said softly, placing the cake on the table beside him. He reached for my hand, his grip weak but warm. "Thank you, Elena. You didn't have to." "I wanted to," I replied. "This is just between us." We sat there in silence for a while, listening to the birds. It felt peaceful, far from the noise and judgment that usually surrounded us. He finally spoke, his voice low but steady. "I'm sorry I didn't protect you more. I should have said something sooner." My throat tightened, but I shook my head gently. "It's okay, Dad. You don't have to say sorry. I understand. You were caught in the middle. But I've learned something. I can't keep waiting for others to stand up for me. I have to stand up for myself." He looked at me with pride, his eyes shining with a mix of sadness and relief. "And you have. I'm proud of you, Elena." Hearing those words healed a part of me I didn't know was still open. I smiled through my tears, cutting a small piece of cake for him. We shared it quietly, no grand celebration, just the two of us. As I left that morning, I looked back at him sitting there in the sunlight. I knew my mother would always be who she was, and my boundaries with her would remain firm. But I also knew this. I was no longer broken. I walked away with a lighter heart, whispering to myself, I am enough. I always was. Hey besties, thanks for staying till the end of this emotional journey. Imagine paying for your father's hospital bills in silence, only to be called a failure by your own mom. Painful, right? But sometimes, standing up for yourself is the greatest gift of all. If this story touched you, don't forget to